Good evening, all of you guys. My name is Siddharth Ajay Sharma, and I am doing a full stack web development course from Almabetter. And today I am going to explain 5 problems out of 20 with the module 1 of coding challenges. So, the module 1 coding challenges contains 20 questions in which I have to explain 5 questions each. So, the first question is calculate BMI. So to calculate BMI, the formula to calculate BMI is weight divided by square of its height. So what the if statement is doing right here, the if statement ensures that neither weight or nor height should be 0 because the further calculation will go smoothly. So the this now this statement calculates the BMI if and now after calculation of BMI, the code executes further and go into the if else statement. It checks that if BMI is less than 18.5, then it returns the underweight, and if this if statement is not true, then it goes further to the if else statement, which is if BMI is between 18.5 and 24.9. So if this statement will true, then the weight is normal weight. Further it is if is not true, then the further code will execute in this else if statement. It calculates if BMI is between 25 and 29.9, so the person will be overweight. And if these three statements will not true, then the if else statement goes to the else statement, which is our default statement, is obese. The person is obese. Now going to the second question, I am going to explain count vowels. Count vowels question. So the function is palindrome takes one string that contains any alphabetical letters. So the const vowels contains the all vowels include, that is A, E, I, O, U, and we have to calculate how many vowels in this string. So we know the vowels A, E, I, O, U. So we don't want any confusion in uppercase and lowercase. So we converted the all sentences into lowercase, all string into lowercase by this statement str dot to lowercase. And now the count variable is set to 0 for counting how many vowels you have in a string. So the further code will go in the for loop. The for loop will iterate through strings each letter. This for loop calculates that if string contains this type of vowel. No, this for loop iterates through each character of the string. So the character should match. If statement checks that if if vowels is equal to the current character. If the current character is includes in any vowels, then the count should be plus plus. Count should be increased by 1, and the return count. So this returns how many vowels you have in a string. Now going to the third question, modifying the code. So the previous code uh, we the previous code was doing by for loop. So for loop has the time complexity of big O of n, which is not proper. So we use here maps, which has the time complexity of log n. So instead of using for loop, we used a map to reduce the time complexity. So here const word sentence to lowercase splits the sentences into words and convert into the array. So words is the array, and we have to map through the array. And these statements do uh, capitalize first letter of the word and adds the rest of the substring to the string, and the the whole map returns the capitalized array, and this return statements joins the capitalized array with the spaces and returns the total string. Now going to the next question. Here the function fizzbuzz takes an integer, and the previous solution is done by the for loop. And for loop we have many if statements, else statements, so code will become any become very large. The code will become very large, and the reading of this code is become very difficult. So we used switch statement instead of these if else statements. This for loop is containing switch statement. The switch statement is true and run without any condition. The first case tells that if the I is divided by 3 and I is divided by 4, means if I is divided by 3 and 4 both, then the fizzbuzz is pushed to the result array. Now the break statement will break if this statement is true. If this case is not valid, then the further code will go to this case and checks if I is divided by 3 only and not for any condition. Then the fizz is pushed to this result, and the break statement will be executed. Now this is the same as above, and the default statement is we can push the string to the result push array. If any of these case statement will not execute, then the default statement will always execute, and the result will be returned in this statement. Now going to the another question, sign of products. We have to calculate the sign of the calculated product, whether it is minus, negative and positive or 0. So the sign of products function takes number nums. So we declared result equals to 1, declared a variable result which is equals to 1, and the for loop will begin. The for loop will iterate through each number of the array, and the result should be 1. Because why result should be 1? Because if result should be 1, then the multiplication will be happen. If result is initialized to 0, if result was initialized to 0, then the resultant would always be 0. So the result is taken as 1. So going to the for loop iterates through each element of the array, and it multiplies the element through 1 and checks the resultant by if else statement. If the result is less than 0, then it returns minus 1. Else if statement, if this statement is not true, then it goes to the another if else statement, and it results, and this if else statement checks if result is positive, so it returns 1. And if both statement is not true, then it returns the default value as 0. That's all about my project, and I completely completed the module 1, which is coding challenges.